Hello everyone, welcome back to this video series on clinical SAS SDTM programming. In this video series, we are taking a look at the SDTM programming general concepts which are reused across different SDTM domains. In this video, we will take a look at the lesson which is talking about remapping unscheduled visits using SV dataset. And again, let us take a look at some of the uh, background which is required for this lesson. In clinical trials, certain data is collected at pre-specified time points, and these pre-specified time points are called visits. Despite the best effort from the clinical trial personnel and subjects who are participating in the clinical trials to stick to the schedule, collections may be missed at the specified time points in certain cases. So, data may be collected out of the pre-specified time windows to make up for the missed assessments or to evaluate the safety of subjects on need basis. These out of window assessments are generally called unscheduled assessments. When collecting the data, all of these unscheduled assessments are reported with a common time point like unscheduled. So the unscheduled visits can happen across different time points within a subject and a test. So if we are giving it a nominal time point like unscheduled on all of those records, when we try to sort the records based on these time point related variables, all unscheduled visits or records get grouped or ordered together. So this does not add much value to the reviewers because they could be collected at different time points, but just because having the value of unscheduled in the visit variable brings all of those records which are collected at different time points into a single set towards the end or somewhere in between. So how does SDTM handle this? So SDTM standard leaves it to the implementer on how to populate visit num and visit on these unscheduled visits. One common approach used to handle this scenario is to populate the visit value on these records or unscheduled records is to use the previous scheduled visit and add a suffix like unscheduled X to that visit. So for example, if the previous scheduled visit is day 3 and an unscheduled visit happened after day 3 scheduled visit, we populate it with a value of day 3 unscheduled 1. Similarly, if a second unscheduled visit happened after the third day 3 scheduled visit, so we populate it with a value of day 3 unscheduled 1. Say for example, similarly, if an unscheduled visit happened after day 7, so we populate the visit variable value on that new unscheduled visit which happened after day 7 is day 7 unscheduled 1. So we are trying to create a counter variable which indicates the nth unscheduled visit which has happened after the previous scheduled visit. So in order to implement this approach, we need to have the SDTM SV dataset programmed by that point in time. So SDTM SV dataset will contain the start and end dates of all scheduled and unscheduled visits for all the subjects. So this SV should have already had that unscheduled visit remapping for this approach to be implemented into any other SDTM findings domain where visit information for unscheduled visits have to be remapped. So what will we learn in this lesson? In this lesson, we will see how to populate visit and visit num variables on unscheduled visits using SV dataset, which already has the resequenced visit values for on unscheduled visits. Now let us take a look at the specification. So before we move on to the specification, let us take a look at the input dataset that we have. So we are using this intermediate dataset called CV02 as input, wherein we have CVDTC, test CD, original result, CVDY, folder seek and folder name are present. So now let us move on to the specification and see. So as we are discussing about remapping of unscheduled visits, this specification only has the information for relevant variables. So visit num, it says populate using folder seek for scheduled visits. For unscheduled visits, add 0.01 to the previous scheduled or unscheduled visit number and assign the value as x.xx. For programming purposes, use SDTM SV dataset to get the visit num associated with the unscheduled visit date. And similarly for visit, populate using folder name after converting to uppercase for scheduled visits. For unscheduled visits, add 1 to the previous scheduled or unscheduled visit number and assign the value as prior scheduled visit name with hyphen unscheduled X, and where X reflects the unscheduled visit number. And again it says for programming purposes, use SDTM SV dataset to get the visit associated with the unscheduled visit date. Now let us go back to the data and then examine the SV dataset. So here if we see the input dataset, so before we move to the SV dataset, let us take a look at the CV dataset, which is our input dataset for this lesson. So we have some unscheduled visits happening for subject 1001. So there is an unscheduled collection on 23rd Jan and also unscheduled visit happening on 24th Jan 2010. So now let us examine the SV dataset for this. So if we see the all the start date and end dates for all the visits occurred for subject 1001 are present in SV, including the scheduled visits and unscheduled visits. So if we take a look at the data, so day 7 unscheduled 1 happened on 23rd Jan, and then second unscheduled visit happened on 24th Jan. So we now need to fetch these visit values from SV dataset into our CV dataset based on the date values. So we will take a look at how to derive this day 7 unscheduled 1 and day 7 unscheduled 2 within SV dataset. But in this video, we are making use of the previously created remapped unscheduled visits and fetching it into our CV dataset. So let us move to the form output and then try to fill the values for visit num and visit. So if we see unscheduled visit happened on 23rd Jan and 24th Jan. So on 23rd Jan, the unscheduled visit got remapped to a value of day 7 unscheduled 1. So if you see the day 7 visit spanned from 20th Jan to 22nd Jan, and day 7 unscheduled 1 happened on 23rd Jan. So what we need to do is go and take a look at the subjects visit or the collection date and see where that start and where that collection date falls in between the start and end dates of a particular unscheduled visit. So here 23rd is falling on day 7 unscheduled 1 visit value. So let us populate the value of day 7 unscheduled 1 here, and there is for RVEF also we have 23rd Jan collection. On this record we have a value of 203.01 for visit num. So let us populate it with that value. So similarly for 24th Jan, so the visit value as per SV remapped structure, it is day 7 unscheduled 2 and day 7 unscheduled 2, and the visit number is 203.02. So let us copy this and then populate it here. So we have made use of the resequenced visit value from SV and populated it in the dataset of interest, which is in this case is CV dataset. So how do we do this programmatically? So let us move to the program. So based on the specification, so we are creating visit num and visit by using the values of folder seek and folder name, and then we are subsetting the records into two classes. One is scheduled and the second one is unscheduled. So we have used the value of folder name and used it in visit variable, and if visit contains unscheduled, we are subsetting those records into unscheduled, and otherwise we are using those outputting the records in scheduled one. And then we are making use of our unscheduled one, and then we are dropping the previously created visit num and visit here, and then fetching the visit num and visit from our SV dataset. If we see SV is being assigned a value reference of B, and then we are fetching the values from b.visitNum and b.visit, which is nothing but our visit values from SV dataset. But we are fetching the matched visit based on subject and the date of collection on where it is falling within the boundaries of SVSTDTC and SVNDTC. So we had seen that SVSTDTC and SVNDTC of uh, day 7 unscheduled one was 23rd Jan. So when we do this SQL Cartesian product and matching, so it gets for 23rd Jan, it fetches the values of day 7 unscheduled 1, and for 24th Jan, it fetches the value of day 7 unscheduled 2. And then this is being created into a new dataset called unscheduled 1, and then unscheduled 02, and then the scheduled visits and the newly created visit values containing unscheduled 02 dataset are being appended together. So this way we will have the remapped visits fetched into unscheduled and then appended back to the scheduled visits. So that way we'll have the data for all the scheduled and unscheduled again in the single dataset. Let us take a look at the intermediate dataset that are getting created as part of this code. So we have assigned visit num and visit as folder seek and folder name here in CV03. After that, we have subsetted scheduled and unscheduled. For scheduled records, we have subsetted. For unscheduled, we have checked whether the visit contained unscheduled and then subsetted them into unscheduled. Otherwise, we have outputted the records to scheduled. And after that, unscheduled 01 is used and merged with SV dataset and fetch the values corresponding to the date value of that subject from SV, from visit num and visit variables. And then we appended this unscheduled visit to unscheduled visits and created it as CV04. And then we have our final dataset reordered based on visit num. We'll have those visits ordered based on the collection date where they get slotted. So this is how we can remap the collected unscheduled visits using remapped visit numbers from SV dataset. Thank you for watching. Keep learning.